Man, good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Um, Once again, I'm Desmond Patterson. Welcome to the 2020 show, where most of us probably turned our TVs off, and rightfully so. I'm always on Facebook. I keep a line going on Facebook um, that this. Okay, let me back up a little bit and let me refocus because I'm a little bit perplexed right now, and I almost took another 5 extra minutes just to get myself together because um, this was a little bit maddening. Um, this was not a game that I expected to see at any point. A 29 nothing score. Um, Cincinnati was not playing well enough coming into this game to help. They didn't shut out anybody at any point this year, even with AJ Green and Giovanni Bernard. Um, that's the shocking part. They're missing their top two offensive weapons, uh, something like 40+% of their production, and they were able to still basically shut this team out. Um, there's a few things that you look for when a team starts to lose like this, and at this point they have lost 7 out of their last 8 games. 7 out of their last 8 games. When teams start to lose like this, you start to look for patterns. You start to look for uh, because the one thing you don't want to see is a team lose the same way repeatedly. You don't want to see a team uh, start to accept that losing. You don't want to see a team that is okay with losing. That's the one thing you don't want to do when you're trying to build a team, when you're trying to start a culture and within a sports organization. The one thing that you want to get out immediately is the mentality that losing is okay. Uh, I was looking to see this team break out of this losing streak. Um, they have not won a game on the road this year. Uh, and what I saw was, now I'm not going to say I saw a few comments on Facebook about the team quitting. I don't see that. I did not see that. Uh, they didn't give up a lot of rushing yards today. They still played the run tough. Um, they were still battling throughout the game. What I saw was, again, defensively, our cornerbacks who got manipulated by a veteran quarterback. Um, Cornerbacks who are playing with bad technique. One cornerback in particular who, whenever he jogs his little self out on the field, QBs light up. He absolutely is being targeted at this point in the season. There's no way around it. Leotis McKelvin is a bad cornerback. This guy might be, and I don't want to hear about the hamstring because the hamstring has nothing to do with his technique. This guy is the worst starting cornerback in the National Football League. Hear me. He is the worst. He wouldn't be able to play on any of the other 31 teams in this league. And I hope the Philadelphia Eagles do the right thing at the end of the season and let this guy walk. Um, period. Period. And coming out of Troy, I love this kid. He was one of my favorite draft eligible players in that draft. Uh, but he's not running a 4-3 anything anymore. That's the thing with these 4-3 guys, these speedsters. Later on in their career, they have a lot of hamstring injuries, and they can't turn it up into that extra gear anymore. and he still plays the game like he thinks he runs a 4-3, and he doesn't. Um, a bunch of injuries throughout his career has taken two to 2.5 to 3 steps off of his speed. He's not that type of player anymore. Um, so he has to lose that mentality that he can turn around with anybody. He's biting on double moves. He's just open. They call it opening the floodgate, opening the gate. You're swinging the gate open. That means when the ball is snapped, they automatically open their hips. So if a cornerback automatically opens their hips to one side, if it's the wrong side, they're instantly beat. And he's doing it a lot. He needs to stop guessing. Um, he's this game hinged on a whole lot more than just him, so I'm not going to stay on him like that. But I love cornerbacks. That's my favorite position. So I study them a lot. I watch a lot of them, and when I see this guy, I cringe. But I'm going to tell you what this game boiled down to. Doug Peterson has got to. He's got to see that he is putting too much pressure on this kid. Yeah, it's going to benefit him next year. It will benefit him next year. He'll start to see different things. But for the life of me, I think the last, and I'm not talking about batted balls. I'm not talking about tip passes. I'm talking about straight throws that were intercepted. I think his last 4 interceptions are on a play down the middle of the field. If Doug Peterson does not stop calling that type of play where he has 2 reads. Now, what they do is they run goals. Now, I don't know why this is. He has a lot of concept plays, meaning the concept of the play is supposed to manipulate and generate a certain look from the defense. So what he does is when they run that type of play, and now I'm sitting at home on my couch, I'm not getting paid. I'm not a defensive coordinator in the NFL getting paid. So if I'm sitting at home on my couch and I can see that he's running concept plays, you got to know that defensive coordinators in the NFL know that they're running concept plays. So when you run a certain play and you run a certain route to get a certain look from a defense, and they know that you're trying to get a certain look, they bait you, which is what's happening. Carson Wentz is getting baited on a lot of these plays because his head coach is not smart enough or not, he's just not willing to bend or come out of this type of play that he's calling, and it's causing this kid a lot of these picks. Now he still has to pull the trigger on the ball, but if your coach is on the sideline saying, "Hey, if you get this look, this is where you go with the ball," then I mean, that has to be the call, because there's no way in the world that this kid is going to keep throwing that same ball on the same type of route every time to the same player. Every time he throws the Wentz deep down the middle, it's a freaking interception. I'm not understanding that. Like, why keep calling that concept? They run the wide receivers, and this is basically the only time the only time that our wide receivers are running deep is if they're trying to push safeties off and create space underneath, or run fade routes to try to get the safeties to widen. But neither one of those safeties widen. They're all colliding down on that triangle or on that tight end because they're baiting them to throw that ball. It's just and I'm doing this for free. So I know defensive coordinators around the NFL are like, no, they cannot be that stupid to keep on. They keep doing it. They keep doing it. It's mind-boggling, man. Carson Wentz dropped back to pass 63 times. 63. That. Listen, Who the best quarterbacks throughout the history of the NFL? You want to put the ball in your best player's hand. But you tell me when the last time you seen Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or Drew Brees or Peyton Manning throw a ball 63 times in a game. Uh, Penalties are a sign of an undisciplined team. Um, you know, I've heard Doug Peterson say numerous times, I don't want to take away their aggression. Okay, but you need to take away something because these penalties, they put up a graphic that this team is third in the NFL in penalties. Third in the NFL in penalties. Usually the bad teams in the NFL lead the leagues in penalties. You never see a good team at the top of the league in penalties. Up until this year, I think the Oakland Raiders were like leading the league in penalties. They did it on a yearly basis. Uh, this was the fifth game this year with 10 plus penalties. A lot of them are procedural. You got a lot of dumb penalties on defense. Um, Penalties are a reflection of an undisciplined team. An undisciplined team is the reflection of bad coaching. Period. Period. Uh, I really hope that in the off season, they say that they have a lot of periods where they self-evaluate. Um, I know when I self-evaluate and I'm pretty honest with myself, I can kind of get to the bottom of what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong, and I'm honest with myself. But when you're dealing with a head coach who's who's dealing with 53 men, who's dealing with the media, who's dealing with the front office, who's dealing with the fans, it's kind of hard to do that because you want to kind of shield yourself. You want to kind of guard yourself against revealing too much or saying that you're wrong or admitting that you're wrong. Because once you admit that you're wrong, all of the entities that I mentioned start to second guess you as a head coach. So what needs to happen is that while he's self-evaluating and maybe being honest with himself, somebody else in his organization needs to be evaluating Doug Peterson. Now, whether that's Howie Roseman or somebody else, or Don Smolinski, or if Jeffrey Lurie brings in a independent consultant, or I don't know how they handle it, but we need to look at that, and somebody needs to be in his ear because you cannot win in the NFL with a rookie quarterback throwing 63 times a game. Now, at this point, last week, he came out and said, I want to see how the team does for the rest of the year. We're going to learn a lot about this team for the rest of the year. We're also going to learn a lot about you for the rest of the year. So, yeah, we're going to learn a whole lot about our head coach going forward these next 4 games. The play left a lot to be desired today. The play calling was horrendous. I said quite a few times, most teams in the NFL have a few plays that that are associated with that team, that they're going to run, that are extremely hard to stop, and that are a staple and a hallmark of that team. This team doesn't have those plays. There's one thing that you cannot account for when you're designing an offense, and that's how a defense is going to counter you. You try to foresee what they're going to do, and then you try to make adjustments off of that. One of the biggest things, and one of the things that impressed me the most in the beginning of the year, is the way that both the offense and the defense adjusted at halftime and came back out after the second half with a game plan, and they usually went down and scored, whether they were up or whether they were down. They usually came out in the second half and performed. That has not been the case. Uh, and in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to put out a few segments about things. Um, Hopefully, I get this notification that I'm looking for so that I can start using highlights. I want to do everything legitimately, so I'm waiting on Word to show highlights and show film, um, and break some things down and be able to show you guys exactly what it is I see when I'm watching film and what I look for and coming games after I see certain things and certain mistakes. But there are a few players who are just not flat. They're flat out not getting it done. I beat this kid up a bunch. So for him today, the type of catches that he made today, um, if he had not been having the type of problems that he had been having all year, uh, meaning drop balls, and he was, being productive and catching balls, if he had dropped every one of those balls that he caught today, um, I would have been okay with that because he made some really, really, really tough catches today, fighting through contact to make the catch, holding on to the ball through contact. And even though they were, all within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, those were really tough catches. Um, so, like I said, when I beat somebody up, if they come back and they do well, I like to give them credit. And, you know, I know it may be for naught at this point, but hats off to Nelson Aguilar for fighting through the mental challenges that he was having and catching those balls today. Um, that might have been all he needed just to show himself that he can do it and he can succeed in his league. And we'll watch going forward, but they need to let this kid run more routes than what he's running right now. I made a comment that Cincinnati's whole defense was within 12 yards of the line of scrimmage, and we didn't take any deep shot down the field. And when we did, it was to the tight end, late down the middle. Like I just said, it's maddening. But all in all, it comes down to a loss. Cincinnati wins this game. They keep their slim playoff hopes alive. It's not a joke. They really are still alive in that division. Um, you know, but as far as the Philadelphia Eagles go, this season is over. Last week, some people were like, just lose out, so you can get a better, draft pick. Our first round pick is not ours, so it doesn't matter. But the rest of the rounds do. So I don't want them to tank because again that creates a negative atmosphere in the locker room. A losing mentality is hard to break. You never want a team to develop a losing mentality. You always want fighters. And I've seen people out there fighting. I saw Brandon Graham fight, and I saw Jordan Hicks still playing hard. Malcolm Jenkins still playing hard. Jalen Mills still playing hard. He gave up a few plays, but he's a 7th-round rookie being asked to start because of the situation that the team was in, the condition that the team was in, that they weren't able to bring in better corners. So he's been forced into action instead of being spot played and learning and maybe coming in next year and compete for a spot. He was thrust into a starting spot. I see the offense still fighting, trying to make plays, but they just don't have the talent. But a lot of the things that were going on it had nothing to do with talent. It has nothing to do with talent because if you look at the game other than today and other than Washington, there were a few plays within the game that they win those games. So if you're that close to the record being flipped, meaning instead of being 5-7, they could have been, 7-5 or 8-4, or conceivably 9-3 at this point, then it doesn't boil down to talent. Um, they were winning games early and competing and in close games. So this loss was not about talent. Uh, it might have been about a lack of talent or a lack of production or a lack of execution at some spots, key spots, but at some spots. And in the NFL, at the skill position, the skill position, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, running back, those are considered skill positions. And on defense, cornerbacks, safeties, those are considered skill positions. Right end is considered a skill position. If you're weak at those areas, you're not going to win in the NFL. One guy who it doesn't look like he's dogging it. It looks like he's giving maximum effort, but he's just not getting the job done. Number 98, Connor Barwin. They paid him a lot of money also. He's not getting it done. He has not been productive at right end in over a month and a half. I don't want to hear about a sack that he got against Seattle, because that sack that he got in Seattle was not a result of him. It was a result of Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. He lucked into the sack. So on his own, he has not been productive. And it is what it is. I know this team has lost a lot of people's interest. Not mine. I follow this team year around. Even when the off season gets here, I do a lot of research. I look up a lot of things, follow what they're doing. I just feel like we just need a handful of things, and this team will be right there. You see Malcolm Jenkins in coverage. The guy gets behind him, and gives up a touchdown. I really believe if they had a cornerback who could play the nickel position and not have him at the nickel position and have him at his natural safety spot instead of having to play Jalen Watkins and him as a nickel corner, I believe that the result on that play is different, because he's the one that's the safety reading the play as opposed to trying to follow and cover a wide receiver or a tight end. I truly believe that. So there are some things that this team needs to do and get and acquire. And I believe that will happen in this offseason. But, again, hindsight is 2020. That's why I named the show 2020, because I talk about it after it happens. And, I'm quite sure there are some plays that Doug Peterson would like to have back. I just need to see some emotion out of this team, man. I mean, when you throw a pick like that late in a game that you possibly have a chance to make some hay in it, and at that point it was about 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they were moving the ball. They were moving the ball. It was a 29-14 game at that point, and they scored there. It's a different game. It's a different game. So I think Doug gets impatient. They were moving the ball, and then they always do that. They move the ball and then take a shot at the worst time instead of just continuing to do what they're doing. This is a team that's methodical. I said it earlier. They have not had a quick strike. They can't do it. They don't have the ability to do it. I mean, they do, but they're not utilizing him properly. I don't even think he played today. I don't remember seeing 16 on the field today. It's just, the one guy on your team who guaranteed can get deep and you don't use him. It's mind-boggling. So, again, they took a loss. Playoffs are really out of the picture now, completely. Put a nail in it, throw the dirt on top of the box, it's over. But there's still some things that they need to go out and do and accomplish going forward. But, that's a discussion for another day. Next week they got Washington. They got Washington coming in here. A team that trounced us last time with the run game. Guaranteed they're going to try to run some of the same plays and do some of the same, have some of the same, want to have some of the same results and want to, run up the score on us again. That game seemed like it was close, but they could have easily. I think they could have put up 40 points on us in that game. And this team is in a better place now than it was then. But again, they're fighting for a playoff spot, and we're not. I don't know how that game is going to go. I wonder what type of mentality this team is going to have now. And it's really over now. That's what today coming in, they still had an outside shot at the playoffs. Today really cemented it that they're not going to the playoffs. And I really want to see this from this point forward going on, how they react, what Doug Peterson does. It was good to see Paul Turner out there on the field today. I mean, it was some positive things, but if I start talking about positive things at this point after a loss like that, people are going to think I'm a homer, and I am not a homer. I call it like it is. So yeah, he has some catches. They got him involved, but it's about 7 games too late. So hey, let's see what he does for the rest of the season. I wish him luck, but they really got to get Carson Wentz some weapons. This isn't about a popularity contest. This is about a kid needing weapons to throw to. And they really don't have him. They really missed Jordan Matthews today. It showed. He might not be a top 20 wide receiver in this league, but they really missed him today. But it is what it is. But thank you for joining me. Again, I always say, if you like what I'm doing, if you like, what's going on, what I'm trying to build, leave a comment. Text me, inbox me, do whatever. YouTube, Diesel Des Patterson is my channel. Check out the videos if you missed them. I put them all on there, the pregame and the postgame. And I got a lot of things coming up. I said earlier that I was going to mention it. I didn't. I want to do it in the right way. So when I get everything lined up, I'll hit you guys with the surprise that I got for you. So with that being said, this has been 2020. I'm Desmond Patterson. Peace.